Good evening, Wealth Our Way Nation. What is going on? It is your main man, Charles Tank Harris, the founder and chief visionary officer of the financial literacy platform, Wealth Our Way, where our motto is wealth is not only for the wealthy. I welcome each and every one of you to the Financial Power Hour. It's going to be a great show tonight as we continue the month of the Home Buyers Workshop. I am blessed to have with me a beautiful, talented, young entrepreneur, realtor, investor, Dayanna Reeves. And Dayanna, we're about to get into an hour of a lovely conversation about just the benefits of working with the realtor. Before I let you introduce yourself to the people, though, I got to practice the attitude of gratitude and say thank you to each and every one of you who are going to be with us live tonight as we stream across the Facebook Wealth Our Way page and the YouTube Wealth Our Way network page. Also want to give a shout out and salute to all the members of Wild Nation who watch this program pre-recorded overnight, over the weekend, wherever they can squeeze financial literacy in. And then a heartfelt how are you to the good folks on the Life 101 platform who listen to the audio of this program. So without any further ado, this is, I think, the 7th episode of the Financial Power Hour, and the guests just keep impressing me with their resume and who they are in the community. And right now, none better than Dayanna Reeves. How are you, Dayanna?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on, Tank. I appreciate it. I'm excited for this conversation and for all the questions that'll come in. I love teaching this information because so many of us don't have access to it, or we just don't know how to find the right information. So I thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited.
No doubt, and 100% agreed. And it's an honor and a blessing to have you with us. And I want you to tell the audience in general, not just about what you do as a realtor. We will get into that for the major part of the conversation. But I'm thoroughly impressed. We don't know each other in person. We've met it through social media, financial literacy, crossing of interest. Just tell everybody a little bit about Dayanna.
Okay. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Dayanna Reeves. I am an investor, entrepreneur, as well as a licensed realtor here in Pennsylvania. And my motto is really financial freedom, right? I love teaching our people about how to access information, with that information, how to execute and how to build wealth. That's what I'm all about. I own a financial literacy coaching company called Millennials Making Sense, LLC. And in the coaching company, I primarily help nurses and healthcare professionals build wealth through their retirement accounts, their stock accounts, and through real estate investing. I myself was trained in healthcare administration. So I went to school, got a bachelor's and master's degree in healthcare administration. And I worked in the industry for about 4 years. And during that time, when I was working in healthcare, I started learning about real estate and other financial literacy information. And that's what led me to go into this area of finance and real estate. So I'm just excited to be here, excited to learn more about everyone who's watching and what questions you have. And we can jump into it whenever you're ready.
Perfect. And I do know, I think Renee was telling me that you'd be streaming this on your platform live as well. So your audience may have a chance to jump in, and if they come through with any questions or whatever, and we don't see them on our end, by all means, let me know if you want to answer them, because I'm sure what they see on that side would be helpful to anyone on this side as well. So one of the things that I have experienced in the course of my life, and by the gray hair, you can tell I'm substantially older than you. But in my days of being a real estate investor, as well as buying homes for my family to reside in, I am currently buying a home in whether it's going to be Alpharetta, Johns Creek, or Roswell, this general area of Georgia. I'm in the home shopping mode again, and this time around, a lot probably more information is available to me than the first times I bought houses in 1999 and 2007, respectively. We come across all of these apps. And one of the things that I really wanted us to get into tonight is just what's real and what's not real amongst the information that we see on apps like Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, and there's even more. And then also, and I tell all my guests this, I get information, I ask questions. I know my guests are experts at, as you just ran off your bio, of the places where you're very strong at. I may get a question from the audience or throw out a question in the area that neither of us is prepared to answer. And if that's the case, just redirect it. We'll deal with it, do some research, and bring the answer back to the audience. But I know lately I've been approached by a couple of realtors who have talked to me about lease to own companies like Divvy and a few other places that are out there. So if we even can get into that later on in the broadcast to help the audience understand what is good and what is not so good. So does that sound like something we can jump into?
Yes, for sure.
Perfect. So let's start with just the market in general. We are in the third week of the home buyers workshop, and I think at this point the audience pretty much is aware that we are in a seller's market. Would you care to explain to the people what you feel about this market? What is a seller's market, and how do you feel as though the market's going to look as we move forward a month, 3 months, 6 months out?
Right. That's a great question. So yes, I would still agree that we are currently in the seller's market. Basically, how I explain a seller's market to general, as far as general information, it just means that the seller has the upper hand, right? So we have more buyers than we have sellers. So therefore, we have 100 buyers maybe fighting over one property. So we kind of look at it as like, okay, well, the seller has the upper hand. The seller has the wiggle room to negotiate and say, hey, I want you to pay more for this property than it's even worth. Right. So the sellers kind of just, they just have the upper hand overall. In terms of moving forward, in terms of what we're seeing trends wise, the interest rates are currently rising. So I don't believe that we're going to immediately move away from a seller's market. However, there are also, a lot of more home buyers coming into the market, and more sellers selling at this point. So in terms of the seller's market going away right away, I don't specifically see it going away really, really soon. It may calm down a little bit with interest rates rising and things like that, but I don't see it really going away anytime soon, honestly.
That's a great answer. What I wanted to also ask, I was talking to a realtor down here in Georgia about how we got where we are right now. Like, we came out of a pandemic, and I definitely understand the exodus of people moving from more expensive areas to lower priced areas. When I moved to Georgia the first time, it was late 2007 when I started looking at homes. I had a home that I had purchased in Cherry Hill, New Jersey in 2000. It was a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath home. I bought it for $219,000. In the run up between 2008 and 2007, my home doubled in value. So now it was like 4 something. Everybody who knows on the program, I'm the father of 6 kids, 5 daughters, and a son. And at that point in time, I had all girls, and my then wife was having our boy. And it became a situation where I needed more house. I needed to get an extra room and an extra bathroom. It was one thing to have all the girls sharing a bathroom. This boy was going to be coming along. Trying to stay in that area of Cherry Hill, New Jersey, where I already was paying about $12,000 a year in property taxes. I found that houses going from 4 bedrooms to 5 bedrooms went from $420 in price to about $700, and it went from $12,000 in property taxes to $20,000. So it immediately made me shift my looking in my area, and I found Georgia. I was able to get an 8-bedroom, 6.5 bath house that was originally listed for $1.1 million. I got the house for $770,000.
Wow.
Yeah, and with the program that was going on at the time, the mortgage program, my mortgage on the new house was $470 less than the Cherry Hill house. So I kept them both at the time.
Wow.
So I bring all that up to say, we come out of a pandemic. Money is tight because the economy slowed in production. People are not going back to physical jobs and working. How is it that the market heated up in such a way? Is it the interest rates? Is it just people relocating? What makes you think that how we got here?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of different things that play into part as to how we got here and why the market and the rates and things continue to creep up. One is the development. If you look around you, there is a bunch of development, especially if you're in a major city, like you're close to Atlanta. I'm here in Philadelphia. The property values are continuing to rise, right? To rise. And with more people doing development in the areas, they're constantly pushing the values up. Right, they're constantly pushing the values up around us. So we're going to see the home sales continue to go up, because although we were in a pandemic, real estate stopped for a short period of time because we weren't able to do construction and things like that. But we got back rolling like this. It wasn't like a long-term stretch for real estate developers and real estate investors, because the way we fund deals and the way we strategize to get these deals, we don't always use our money. So whether we were working or not, we're leveraging banks' money, we're leveraging other people's money. We have all these different tactics. So that's one of the reasons why, the development hasn't slowed down. And as the development and the property values continue to raise, then you're going to see the home values continue to skyrocket. So people are being pushed out of certain areas due to affordability and, like you mentioned, needing more space. However, it just didn't make sense for you to go and buy in that market anymore.
Exactly. I love that answer, and I appreciate that. One of the things that I love about your platform, and when I see your ads, not ads, but your postings on social media, I know you spend a lot of time talking to nurses, talking to people in the healthcare industry. My audience are rank and file, professionals in various areas. Let's talk about, as we look to buy houses, what are some of the things that you tell people as far as not just being able to buy a house so that they have somewhere to live, of course, but how does it position them to close the racial wealth gap and build wealth?
Oh, yes, for sure. That's an amazing question. So a lot of the clientele that I work with are nurses and healthcare professionals. And whether you're in that field or not, most people that I run across, they're looking for ways to build up wealth so that they can buy themselves time, right? Buy themselves time. So in terms of doing that, you may be looking at purchasing your own house, right? Your own personal single family house. And that's perfectly fine and all, but you also have to be looking towards the future in terms of retirement, right? And when you talk about retirement, we've moved away from pensions years ago. People are not really getting pensions anymore unless they're already locked in. So we have to be thinking of other ways to build wealth and invest our money so that we're comfortable in retirement. And retirement meaning whatever age that may be. Right. So real estate investing and owning rental property is one way that you can be building up your retirement portfolio so that you can sit back and relax when you're in your retirement years and you can live off of that passive income coming in from your tenants that are paying the mortgage. And, not to mention, once that mortgage is paid off, you can tap into the equity in that property and do so much more things with. You can invest it into insurance policies, annuities. There is a ton of different things you can invest in your money in, but you kind of have to be building somewhere. So I tell people that definitely think about owning property in terms of your retirement portfolio, because a lot of these professionals that I work with, they make a lot of money, but they're not positioning the money and they're not giving their dollar a job. Right. Okay. So it's all about really telling your money what to do. I'm going to tell my money to buy this investment property so that when I retire, I have money coming in from my investment property and I'm not just banking on my retirement portfolio that may or may not be a large amount.
That's excellent. And you make a valid point. So for my faithful Wealth Our Way Nation members, they know there's a acronym that we use here at Wealth Our Way called BUD, best use of a dollar. And I think that goes right in hand with giving your dollar a job, finding a way for your money to be at its most optimal usage. And I think a lot of people, once they start to grasp that concept, I had a phone call literally as I was pulling back up to my house today to get ready for the program. One of my clients called me. She's coming to the end of her lease. These are the questions I get. She's coming to the end of her automobile lease. She's been fortunate enough to build equity in a lease because, and this is off topic for a hot minute, but almost all of us drive. So this is some free information outside of real estate tonight. Whenever you lease a car, which whether you agree with leasing or not, it's a whole nother story. But if you do lease a car, every lease has a end price purchase option at the end of the lease. It's the residual value left on the vehicle. Well, the same way houses have been rising up in value, automobiles, especially the used car market, has skyrocketed over the last 12 to 18 months. So what you have now are people who are coming off a lease with a guaranteed locked in price. The dealer cannot change it for what you can purchase your car for at the end of the lease. And you're seeing that you can take said car, turn it around and just sell it to a dealer and make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on what model you were in. My particular client had a situation where her lease purchase price is $7,400 less than what CarMax quoted her they would give her for her car. Mm-hmm. So we were just discussing how to pay for the car, whether she should write a check, get a car note, what she should do when she sells the car. And we went right back to the concept of best use of a dollar. Can you get a car note right now in a rising interest rate environment for less than 4 or 5%? even with good credit right now, that's pretty much the number we're at for a pre-owned car. So if we're not earning 4 or 5% in the bank account, it made sense for her to go ahead and write the check for the car and then turn around and sell it and use that equity to purchase her next car. So I just wanted to touch on that when you talked about what the optimal use of dollars are. I think at this point in the program, I always try to do some conversation for the first 15 minutes to make sure the audience is live and around. I want to get into what we put on the advertisement as far as talking about these apps. What, as a realtor, give me what your love and your hate is about your clients calling you up after looking at apps or trying to tell you that the app knows better than you.
Right, right. So that's an excellent question. And when I talk to my clients, when I'm on when we're doing the onboarding process, I try to encourage my clients to stay far away from apps as they can. Right. and that's I mean that in a totally unbiased way. And here's why. So when you're going through the home ownership process, I always tell people you have two best friends when you're buying a home. The traditional way, if you're buying a home using a mortgage company, you have two best friends. Your two best friends are your realtor and your mortgage lender, right? So with that being said, if you need to pick two best friends throughout your homeownership process, are you going to rely on a social media app? Similar to if you were to you're going blindly, just searching Zillow, right? It's kind of like you're just searching like a dating app to find the best friend, or like a social app to find the best friend, right? When you're selecting a realtor versus going on Zillow and just getting the realtor that they're giving you, you're actually building a personal relationship. You're able to vet the realtor, right? You should be interviewing at least 3 realtors before you make a decision, right? You should be asking them, what do they know about the market? What resources do they have? Do they work with any lenders? Do the lenders have any home buying programs for first-time buyers? You should be asking your realtors all of these questions. If you're just relying on an app, you may or may not get that personal connection with someone, right? Through an app. And how apps work is most of the time, there's a bunch of realtors in the system, and whoever phone rings when you call the number, they answer. So whether they are in that direct market or not, they just may be trying to get a lead because maybe their business is slow. So they're going to answer that phone and see how they can best help you. They may or may not be the best fit, but again, realtors, most realtors are after a commission, right? So if they hear that you want a house for $500,000, they may not even be familiar with where that house is at, but they're going to try their best to help you. And again, that may or may not be the best fit for you because they could be just like telling you information off the fly because they're trying to get a commission on a $500,000 house. So I always encourage people to work with a real person that you personally have connected with or known, and don't just rely on the apps. Another thing that's really important is when you're searching these apps, a lot of people are searching for gold when they don't even know if they can afford gold. Right. So when you're working with your realtor should be explaining the pre-approval process to you, meaning how you go through the pre-approval process with your mortgage lender and what it means to be pre-approved and for how much. Right. So until you understand and go through the pre-approval process and get your pre-approval letter, you really shouldn't be searching apps for houses because you could be searching for things that are way out of your league, or you can be searching for things that are not out of your league. So I just encourage people to work with a real person, interview at least 3 realtors before you start the search process, and really get clarity and get a blueprint as to how you need to move forward with meeting this goal.
I love that. And we'll go back to the apps in a minute, but you touch on the interview process. And as a former financial services professional who worked at brokerage firms, insurance companies, I used to always tell people you have to interview your financial advisors. It's a tongue-in-cheek bit of advice because I say it and I mean it, but I know human nature. People aren't going to do it, especially, God forbid, they meet the first person and they like that cat. They're not going to waste their time with the second or third interview. But it is very important to, just for some of the things that you're pointing out, knowing a market, having resources, what type of plans, that your lender would have. Are there grants? Are there workshops that you can go through? And keeping it real with you. I think one of my clients gave me a compliment the other day. He said, he's one of my tougher to deal with clients. He said, Tank, I know you're not a yes man. You're going to tell me when I'm messing up. And that is something that a lot of people who make a commission or who charge a fee for service, they don't do because, God forbid, they push a check away. And what I find, I've learned this through my 25 years of being in business, it is better to not get a check that wasn't for you than to get one that's going to be a headache and a nightmare down the road. I would only imagine that as a realtor, one who works on commission, that there are certain clients that you just know from the door may not be for you. Doesn't mean you can't refer them to somebody else, but they may not be for you. Talk to the audience about what the interview process should look like and should include.
Yes, so that's a great question. So when interviewing a realtor, I always encourage clients to ask a few of these questions. So I like for clients to, I recommend that clients ask them, what market do they primarily sell or like help people buy houses in? You want to know the trends in the market, right? What are the values? Are the values going down in that market? Are the values going up in that market? You want to get an idea of, if you're not from the area, you may not know. So it's very important to get an idea on what the trends are. And as a realtor, you should know how to find this information very easily using our tools and our resources that we have access to. For my first-time home buyers, I work with a lot of first-time home buyers. That's the majority of my clientele. I always recommend that they ask the first-time home buyers, what other resources do you have for me? Right? Do you have a home buyer workshop where I can get all this information? Or do you have some type of home buyer resource where I can learn what does it even mean to be a homeowner? Right? What type of things am I now responsible for now that I no longer rent an apartment? Right? I also encourage them to ask about the down payment assistance and the grant programs that are sometimes available in different cities and counties, because a lot of first time buyers, they may not be in position to have a bunch of cash. They may need some support, right? So I encourage them to ask their realtor about that. And then also other resources, meaning, do you have a title company, right? A title company is going to be very important in the process. They're the ones who's going to process all your documents to make sure that there are no liens or judgments against the house, and make sure that they transfer the deed over to you clean and concisely. They're going to need a home inspector. So your home inspector is going to make sure that the house is in great condition. At very minimum, that it's no safety issues going on in a house where it can be of danger to you when you buy it. You may need a recommendation for a mortgage lender, right? Every client is not going to come to you having their financing already intact. You need to have mortgage lender partners, and they need to be able to communicate with these clients, because as realtors, I have a little upper advantage because I know the finance end of things. So I'm able to help my clients on certain things financially. But realtors are really not supposed to be in the mix of the finances. That's the mortgage lender's job. So again, you have two best friends in this process. Your realtor is going to be responsible for making sure that they are sending you houses within your budget, making sure they're taking you out to see these houses and educating you. And then they're responsible for writing the contracts and the agreements on your behalf, right? So they're responsible for the legal paperwork. And then the mortgage lender is going to be responsible for running your credit, running your finances, and making sure that they explain to you the interest rates, or if they have any points or anything like that. But anything financially, you should really be going through the mortgage lender. So as a realtor, I have all of these resources already set up for my clients. So if they come to me, they don't know anything, I'm going to educate them from start to finish. And I'm also going to give them all of my resources so that they don't have to figure this out on their own. That's why they're working with me. So I would say those things to make sure you ask your realtor and make sure that they have these type of things set up for you.
Perfect. Before we move on to the next question, I want to remind everybody that in the comments, Renee, my assistant, has put a questionnaire that anyone who wants more information on anything from Wealth Our Way or any of our strategic partners can fill out the questionnaire. Later in the show, Dayanna's contact information will be put in the chat. So anyone who please, by all means, utilize her as a resource, ask questions. Everyone who comes on the Financial Power Hour is a resource to the entire audience at all times. So once again, Dayanna, thank you for being here for that regard as well. Our audience is better for having you. So you said something really interesting about the interview process. It made me think about the fact that a lot of people aren't understanding how realtors actually work, that in a deal, there can be two realtors, sellers, realtors, buyers, realtor. There could be a realtor who has both sides of the listing. What is helpful to know if I'm a novice looking to get a home and I want to buy? Who do I trust in this process?
Right. That's a great question. So number one, you should trust the realtor that you're hiring, that you're signing on, because how it works is when you're working with the realtor, it's not just a handshake deal. You have to sign off on. In Pennsylvania, it's two important contracts that you sign off before we even start working on your behalf. So those contracts are going to be your consumer notice, which basically tells you your rights as a consumer, and it explains the agents, what the agent's roles are, whether you're the buyer's agent or the seller's agent. And then you also have your exclusive agreement. Your exclusive agreement allows your realtor to represent you and only you on your behalf. It also talks about the fees and things of that. If your realtor charges you any fees, it will have that in the agreement. So before you even start to working with the realtor, you should have read the contracts they sent you and ask any questions up front if you're unclear, and then you sign the contracts. A lot of time people will sign off not reading, and then they come to find out later on that something was unclear.
Right.
So that's really, really important. So yeah, so those two main things. And can you just clarify the second half of the question for me?
The other part of the question is when people are dealing with, I think a lot of people don't know the terminology. What's a real estate agent? What's a real estate broker? What's a buyer's agent? What's a seller's agent?
Right.
And just getting clarity for people of how they know where they get that information, what resources they can trust to know who they're dealing with.
Right. So your realtor, whoever you're hiring, should definitely be telling you that information. For example, if I'm a realtor and I'm working on the seller's behalf and the buyer's behalf, I have a moral responsibility to disclose that to both ends. If I don't disclose that and it comes up later, I can be sued. I can lose my license. So realtors, you can be a real estate agent because, okay, so let me back up a second. You have real estate agents who took the real estate exam, passed the license, but they never went through a specific ethics and moral training. It's another level of training that you need to go to be considered a realtor. Okay. A realtor has to abide by the highest code of ethics. A real estate agent does not. They don't have anything that's telling them they need to do that aside from their broker, and their broker may or may not have any standards.
Okay.
So as myself as a realtor, I had to go through certain trainings and more so like ethics and working with people. So it's just a little higher caliber of professional knowledge that we had to go up against to make sure that we're representing clients legally and morally and ethically on the behalf that we need to be operating. So you want to ask them, are they a real estate agent or are they a realtor? So not to say you shouldn't work with real estate agents, but if you can work with a realtor, just know that if your realtor does something a little strange or if something comes up, they are held to a different level of a standard, and they can be punished a little bit more than the real estate agent because we basically signed the oath saying we promise to operate as the higher standard and morally, ethically, and all of that. As a real estate agent, you didn't have to do any of that.
Understood.
So it's a slight difference, but I think people kind of use them interchangeably. If you're a realtor, you're kind of proud of that. So that will probably be in your signature. So that's a way to kind of know without having to drill people like, hey, are you an agent or are you a realtor? Like you don't have to get like that. You don't have to get like that with them, but you can kind of know based on how they present themselves, right? They may sign their name as realtor, or they may just say they're a real estate agent, right? But you really should be trusting the person that you hire because again, if they're representing both sides of the deal, the seller's agent and the buyer's agent, they have to disclose that to you.
Okay.
Even as a real estate agent, you have to disclose it, right? Disclosure is everything. So you really should be trusting your realtor, whoever you hired to work with you. And it's kind of tricky because you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes you don't know these questions to ask. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of makes it tough, but I hope that kind of answers the question. You should be focusing on trusting the person who you're working with as your agent.
I appreciate that. No, that answers it in a great way. And there's a lot of parallels to that in the financial services industry between, brokers and, advisors, people who have a fiduciary responsibility versus people who don't. So I definitely understand that. Let's talk about compensation for realtors, real estate agents, any professional who sells a house, because it's funny. We're all business people and we're all trying to make money. And literally, I just called a doctor's office. This never happened to me before until today. called the doctor office down here in Atlanta. I'm trying to find a whole new litany of doctors from the Jersey doctors I had. And first time ever, the doctor's office asked me for a credit card number to pay for my consultation this Saturday. So not the copay, not the normal stuff that'll happen when you go in there, give them your insurance card. They wanted me to pay for the right to see the doctor. And, you know, it's caveat emptor, you know, it's buyer beware. It's whatever the market will met out is what the market is. I could have said no. I could have called another doctor who doesn't charge that. But I wanted to see this particular doctor, highly recommended. And I guess doctors, their time is valuable like everybody else's. So if you're going to just go around having consultation, and not charging for it, you won't have time to go work with your paying clients because you're just meeting people for free and seeing if they want a particular service from you. So I respected that as a professional. They say if you want to sell something, sell it to a salesperson, because we just buy everything because we understand how time and value works. So it didn't bother me at all to get this person my credit card information. I bring that up to say, explain to the audience that, you know, I know this answer, but the audience, we try to approach everything as if we're all in kindergarten and we're all trying to learn. So do you pay your realtor? Your realtor is showing you 15 houses, takes you to lunch. Who pays for lunch? Like, what is the nature of the business relationship? Because I know what it is, the long play. But there are probably realtors who say, hey, look, I just showed you 15 houses. My gas costs money. This costs money. You're going to pay me. Like, how does that work?
Yes. So there's two answers to that question. So there's typically a standard way that realtors do business, and then there's a non-standard way that I'm starting to see more people do business. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the standard way is that if you're buying a home, so if you're a home buyer, you typically don't pay the realtor anything. Typically, the realtor is getting their commission from the seller. The seller is going to pay both realtors, their realtor and your realtor as the buyer. However, there are some times where the realtor that you're working with, they may have a broker's fee or an administrative fee that, again, this goes back to reading those contracts that you're sent initially before you make the commitment to work with the realtor, because every contract I write, if there are any fees, I list them there. So once the client signs on the dotted line, they're responsible for that fee, right? So if your broker has a fee or an administrative fee, typically you're going to have your buyer pay that, right? But the beauty in that is that the buyer doesn't have to worry about having any money up front to pay you, because all of that is paid at the closing table once you buy the house. So it'll just be rolled into your closing fees, right? The fees are typically low. Like, it'll be something under like $600 that you have to pay your realtor, as far as maybe an administrative fee or a broker fee, right? So that's the standard way that it works. 9 times out of 10, as a home buyer, you're not paying for anything. And that's another reason why it's no reason to use these apps like Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, because these people you don't have any personal connection with. When you can form a personal connection with someone and you don't really have to pay them until you close on a deal, that's pretty much a no-brainer to use a realtor, especially after you vet one and you select one that's a perfect fit for you and can help you meet your goals. The second way that I want to say, the non-traditional way that is allowed legally, is realtors can set their own fees. So if a realtor wants to get creative and a realtor wants an upfront fee, I actually had a realtor do this to me before, but I didn't know any better at the time. She charged me $1,000 upfront, and that was her fee. Like, she would work with me for, the contract was for a year, but I had to pay her $1,000 upfront as like a deposit. I wasn't going to get that back, so I don't want to call it a deposit. It was more of a fee. So she charged me $1,000 upfront. We never ended up closing on a deal, so I basically paid her $1,000 for her time. Now, that is allowed. However, most realtors are not going to do that because the competition isn't doing that. So if I'm charging my clients $1,000 per just to sign up with me, and the other realtor is charging them $0, and we have the same information, they're going to go with the person that's a little bit cheaper or $0 in the beginning, because most times people are not trying to pay up front, especially if you haven't served them yet. You know what I mean? So it's two ways you can do it. But again, realtors, if they are charging a fee, then they should be upfront with you, and it will also be on your contracts. That's why you need to read your contracts before you sign off, because if you don't read them and they say you have to pay them $1,500 at closing, that's $1,500 more you have to bring to closing. And that can be substantially a lot for somebody, especially somebody who's just trying to get into real estate.
Right.
So those are the two answers that I have for you for that one.
I appreciate that. And once again, like, the great thing about the format of this show and me going to more of a quote unquote interview style as opposed to my other show where I just talk myself is my guests always have such good information that feeds me the next question. So you just said something about differentiating between someone who would want $1,000 up front versus someone who doesn't. And I definitely understand and can be on the side of your answer of, in all things considered equal environment, it's going to be hard to charge $1,000 if Jill up the street is not charging it. But now I bring it to the other side, whereas professionals, you know, I've been telling people for 25 years as a salesperson, cost and value are two different things. Mm-hmm. You know, I may charge you $1,000 and the guy up the street may charge you $0. And in working with me, when it's all said and done, you've made another $100,000. Mm-hmm. So who was more expensive? I argue that the person who didn't charge you anything was more expensive in that example. Yeah. So I would imagine in real estate, like in my field or any other field, everybody doesn't get an A in their class. There's some neurologists out there. Watch yourself the next time you get a headache. There is some neurosurgeon out there who got a C in neurology when he was in college. Like, C students get degrees as well. So with that being said, I watch these shows. I don't watch TV a lot, but I've seen the shows, $1 Million Listing and selling $50 million homes at the Hamptons. I would imagine these are your top realtors, because I know real estate designations or accolades are measured by sales volume. Yes. So it doesn't necessarily make you the better person because you sold $4 billion in real estate. Just means you're selling in Bel Air or in the Hamptons. But with that being said, I would imagine that you got to be a pretty damn good realtor to sell somebody a $40 million house. And with that being said, talk to me about the importance of understanding who your realtor is. Are they good? Like, you know, are they going to do all of the dotting of the I's and the crossing of the T's that make the home buying experience what it needs to be? Or I would just go to Zillow and pick a house and do up.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's definitely a great question. So yeah, if someone's charging those amounts, they probably are likely higher end realtors representing higher end markets, maybe, or they've been in the industry for so long, maybe they even are a broker at that point, but they still do sales for certain clientele that are maybe in the $1 million up range in terms of market value that they're buying. But yeah, it's definitely important to just really do your research on these realtors, right? We're in the area where we live in a social media world, and everything that glitters isn't gold. So that's why I recommend talking to these people. Fill out their tone, right? Fill out their tone, fill out how they're talking to you, how they answer your questions. There are some realtors that, you know, clients come to me after they've come to other realtors, and I always get feedback because I want to make sure that I'm at the top of my game as well. If clients are turned off by something a realtor is doing, I want to know about that because I want to make sure I'm not making that mistake and turning clients off the same way. So clients will complain and say, you know, I wanted to work with this realtor. She seems like she sells a lot of houses. I found her on Instagram, but when I called her, she told me that, you know, if my credit score was only 580, then I need to come back to her when I get my credit score right. But something like that is problematic to me, because obviously if they came to you with a 520 or 580, they probably don't know how to get their credit right. So as a realtor, if you are, especially depending on your clientele, but for me specifically, I'm working with a lot of first-time buyers. So if a client comes to me and they got a 580, I'm not turning them away. I'm giving them the resources to improve, and I guarantee you they're going to come back around when they're ready. So that's the difference. I'm solution focused. A lot of realtors, again, may be chasing a commission check. So if you come and you only got a 580, you may be considered a bad lead, because the likelihood of you closing on a house with a 580 is lower than somebody who maybe got a 720 and a bunch of savings. You know what I mean? So all of this is a numbers game, especially depending on what market, what clientele you're serving. But I really just encourage people. I recommend trying to talk to them on the phone or in person or virtually if you can, because I believe that's the best way to try to fill someone out. Or you're getting recommendations from other people who have had success stories with them. Now, sometimes you have to take people's recommendations with a grain of salt, because in real estate, things don't always go as planned. So they may have had a smooth process with that realtor, but your process could have been different because maybe you didn't find the house you wanted for 3 months. So now you're upset and you're getting impatient, but they found their house in a month. So now you're saying the realtor may be bad and things like that. So I've ran into that as well. So I just encourage people to just make a list of questions that you're going to ask these realtors, and really try to get a face-to-face or at least a phone call with them to try to vet them out. Because if you don't, then you could cost yourself. Like you said, cost and value are completely different. So I'm over delivering every time. If a client is telling me, okay, oh, I'm asking you your credit score, not to say, oh, you need to improve it. I'm asking you your credit score to tell you need to improve it, but here's how, and this is what you need to do. And that's another reason why I do the home buyer webinars for free, because it gives me a chance to educate a large audience at one time. It gives them a chance to interact with me and ask questions, and they get to fill out my personality, and I'm keeping it all the way real with them. I'm not presenting them any fluff. I'm telling them, this process takes work, but it can be done. It's not impossible, but you have to be willing to do the work. So again, I just think it's really about that initial vetting process and really trying to figure out, like you said, who these people are, and are they who they really say they are, and can they deliver and over deliver as they should to make you a successful home buyer.
I love that. Before we get into the next question, you got to tell my people about your home buyer workshops.
Yes. So my home buyer workshops, I typically do them once a month. I do have one coming up on February 22nd, so I will share that information with the audience. This home buyer workshop is going to give you the blueprint to buy your first home. I'm giving away everything in this workshop. This is not only if you're buying in Pennsylvania. Although I'm only licensed in Pennsylvania, I have partners in other areas that I can recommend to you if you don't already have a realtor. But this home buying workshop, you can come to this workshop and buy in Atlanta. You can come to this workshop and buy in Chicago. This is how the process works throughout the US. It's not just in Pennsylvania. So I'm giving you the blueprint as far as the steps in the process, how to go from step A to Z and becoming a home buyer. I also have a free home buyer guide that I will share with this audience as well, Tank. I didn't tell you that, but that was a surprise.
You're making me happy over there. I like that good information for free. I love it.
That's a surprise. So I have a free home buyer guide I will share with the audience as well. But like I said, my free home buyer webinar is basically to educate and to give clients the chance to get to know who I am, the type of things that I do, and to ask me questions and just keep it real with them. Because again, especially a first-time home buyer, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm telling them what they need to look for in a realtor, how they need to build up their credit, what their credit profile needs to look like, because it's not just about the credit score. It's about what's on your credit report, right? I'm also telling them about different down payment assistance and grant programs. And if you're not in the market, these are just things that you can ask your realtor or ask your mortgage lender. What types of things do you have? So I'm basically giving them the play-by-play on how to become a homeowner and what questions to be asking in the process to make sure that they are fully aware of everything that's going on. I'm also educating them on how to prepare their financial documents to buy a home. Have you filed your taxes in the last 2 years? If you haven't filed your taxes, the government's not giving you a mortgage. So we go through all of that. And I think the clients really appreciate that I'm taking the time to really educate them on the process, because a lot of people don't buy homes because they think it's the scariest, hardest thing in the world, and it's not.
Right. I love all of that. And I appreciate the free knowledge. Once again, the guests that I bring on this show are not just people who have financial knowledge, because I like to believe I'm special when it comes to the wealth of knowledge that I have, but I'm not. There's a lot of people who have been professional, who have studied, have educated themselves, have went to college or courses. But I bring people on who care about the community. I was taught in sales. My first brokerage job was Solomon Smith Barney. And the person sat in front of the group of us newly minted brokers and said, people will not care what you know until they know that you care. So seeing how much you give back to the community is special. And it's one of the reasons I wanted you on the program, because everybody who hears my voice on a weekly basis knows I give the shop away. I've been blessed. I feel like I have a debt to pay for what it is that I've enjoyed in life. And I never am without money. Praise God. I'm never without the means to have the tools that I need to succeed at my fingertips. So I want to give those tools to other people. I'll talk to a homeless person. I don't care. I mean, give me an audience. I'll go at it. And I feel that you're doing the same thing in the community.
Yes.
So I want to thank you, especially at such a young age. So it's great to know that, the next generation is doing it big as well. With that being said, I appreciate that. I want to go to the next question about, we're talking about how good realtors are. And I got to remember Tony Robbins. I love Tony Robbins. He's a motivating guy. He's one of the first motivating gurus that I ever heard of when I got into sales. He talked about a realtor experience, and I am pretty sure every realtor would love to have this type of story told about him. He said he was looking to buy a house. He was first starting to make some money, and the realtor started showing him around the house. And as he was going, it was a young lady, as she was going around the house, she was like, so this will be Sean's room. And I know Sean likes baseball, so it's a place over there for him to put his glove and his bat. And Tony Robbins is walking around like, how the hell does she know my son's name? Like, and he's just walking through the house as she's telling him about how his wife knows the how to cook and do this and do that. She had did so. You talk about being in the social media age. This is 1997, where social media wasn't as prevalent, but this woman was trying to sell at the time, I think it was a $4.7 million house, which probably in this market would be a $20 million house for keeping dollars to dollars. And she knew to make that type of sale, she had to be more than a realtor. She had to be a family advisor, a friend, a confidant. So tell people how you do that for clients. And if a person isn't blessed enough to get you as a realtor, how they know they have someone who has their best interest in mind.
Yes, that's an amazing question. And I love that question because, again, when it goes back to vetting your realtors, before how I go about this is I do the home buyer webinars. From the home buyer webinars, people are scheduling one-on-one consultations with me because, again, the home buyer webinar is going to give you the general information. But of course, you may have some questions about your unique situation. So that's when you talk to me throughout the process. Most people are willing to make the commitment right then and there because they've already seen me on the webinar for an hour, 2 hours. They've already got their questions answered. They felt out my energy. They feel like I'm keeping it real with them. They feel like they can relate to me of some sort. And from there, I'm asking them a bunch of questions about them. Their personality questions, they may seem like they're random questions, but I'm asking them like, do you have a family? Do you have children? How many children do you have? Are you buying this house for yourself, or are you buying it as an investment property? What are your goals? Where do you see this going? You know what I mean? So I'm asking these probing questions so that when I do get out in the field and we are at that process, but even before we get there, I need to know if you prefer a rancher style house versus a house that's a row home, right? So I need to know all of these things. If you're not asking these questions up front, you could be wasting your buyer's time in a sense because you're sending them a lot of fluff that they didn't even want this. They don't want a house that's a row house. They want something that's a twin, and they're only going to buy a twin. So if they're only buying a twin, you don't need to be sending them anything aside from twins, right? So it's really about getting those upfront questions answered, not only about the personality and about their family and things of that sort, because when you're at the showings, the home showings, that's when you're able, like Tony Robbins was saying, that's when you're able to make those connections and say, hey, so I know you really wanted to make that man cave for your husband in the basement. And I think this basement is the one. This is the perfect basement for your husband. He could put the flat screen right here. You got a room for a pool table over here. Like, you just fill them out. And it goes back to those psychological questions that you're asking them. And in sales too, it's a sales tactic, but it's also that you remember the information, whether you had put in your notepad or not, you're attentive to them. They feel like you're paying attention to them. And no matter if someone's buying from you or not, if you can get someone's attention and they feel like you're being attentive to them, you're going to be 9-10 times more better than someone who's just they just let you walk in the house and be like, all right, I'm going to be here. I'm going to be checking emails.
It's funny you say that, and once again, go back to the sales thing. I never hide from the fact that I am a salesperson. I think too many people, sales has been given a badge, a 4-letter word, and people want to say, oh no, I'm a financial professional, or I'm a this. No, we're selling something. I'm a salesperson. Here's the thing though, right to the point of what you said, I don't think people mind dealing. People know they got to buy stuff. People know they're going to be dealing with salespeople, but do you care about me? So I'll go off. I'm very famous for going off color a little bit, so bear with me. I don't have an HR department. You cannot sue me. The reality is this: I have 5 daughters. All of them now are of dating age, and I'm the keep it real dad. So I've told them, I said, look, boys only want one thing. Dad's dad. I only wanted one thing. I said, but here's the difference. Are you getting the dude who's going to pull up to the house, beat the horn, and expect you to come outside? Or are you getting the dude that's going to pull up into the driveway, have flowers, want to meet your parents, introduce himself? They both ain't SHIT. They both want the same thing. But who put forth more effort and put the effort and the time and even the disguise on to present themselves is better? Because at the end of the day, if I do have to buy something from somebody, if I want to go car shopping and I walk into one dealership and they're giving me water and a snack and showing me something on TV while I wait for my financing versus another car dealer who basically says, well, you got to wait over here while Jimmy comes and fills his paperwork out. I'm buying from the person who treated me better. And I think that's something that comes across in all of the things that you're offering with the webinars. It's the same thing here. Because I just want people to become more financially literate. And I think people, the more they hear from me, points that help their lives. I don't like to use the word trust. So I just say it builds a rapport. People will say, hey, Tank will always tell me what's going on. He's knowledgeable. He cares. And from there, our relationship will blossom. I want to say that for most people, the home that they purchase is going to be the single biggest investment that they make. So you are the gateway to the biggest wealth building tool that they'll get. It has to be a relationship that means something. How do you feel? Well, let me ask you a question based on the market that you work in. I know for me, I can't be all things to all people. Are there certain clients who you just know they're not for you for whatever reason? And if so, how do you deal with that? Are you able to pivot and recommend that they use somebody else? What is your criteria for selecting clients?
Yeah, so I had to learn that. I didn't know that at first when I first got licensed, but I started realizing that I had to niche down and really focus on the clients that I really more so enjoyed working with. And it wasn't necessarily the clients; it was more so the type of home they were looking to buy. So, for example, when I first started and I first got licensed, I was working with everybody, right? I was just trying to get my feet wet. I was really just trying to just do numbers, right? Do numbers and learn the game. So I soon realized that I no longer wanted to work with real estate investors, right? Myself as an investor, especially at the level of understanding and knowledge that I have now, versus a new investor and a new real estate investor, in my opinion, that's trying to use a realtor is going to require way, way, way more than a first-time home buyer. And I noticed that they were requiring way more. And it's not that I couldn't offer it because I was keeping up as best as I could, but I started realizing that and I'm very thorough in everything I do. I can't like half things. So we would go into these houses, and mind you, they're investors, so they're looking for like beat up properties for the most part. So we would go in these houses, and we're spending time in the houses and we're looking at things. And then I'm turning into a general contractor, right? Because I have experience working and I completed one flip, but I also do some other rehabs. And it's like I started becoming more so of an educator on top of showing houses, on top of running analysis for clients. And I'm like, as a beginner investor working as a realtor working with beginner investors, it started feeling like I was their one-on-one coach. And having 5 investor clients and I'm trying to be their one-on-one coach, they'll text you any time of the day, any time of the night. Can you get these comps to me? I need these comps. I'm about to lose this deal. I really need you to run these comps. They started like it just started becoming more work than I needed to be putting in. And then going back to being a business person and making money, it didn't add up to the amount that I would be getting. Right. So my time was becoming like I was wearing myself thin with it. So I'm like, I really enjoy working with these first-time home buyers. I was doing the workshops at the time. I'm like, yes, first-time home buyers require a lot. However, it didn't require near as much as the first new investor. And
Right.
what I realized is that after you're at a certain level of investing, you're not going to run your realtor like a new investor will run them. Because as a more experienced investor, you may just need your realtor to let you in the house. That's
Right.
all you need, because you go in, you already know the value, you already know this, you already know that, because you're more experienced. But as a new investor, you require a lot more attention. And so though with those clients, I found a realtor that was on a previous team that I was on. She loved working with new investors. She gets busy with them. So I referred all of my clients to her. So that's kind of how I kind of niched down. I was really thinking about, what I like the best about the experience. And I really love when a first-time buyer closes on a house, and now I know what that's going to do for their family and generations to come.
Yes.
So it just hits me in a different way. So I'm like, I'm first-time buyers. That's my niche, but I also work with sellers.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I figured out what type of clients to kind of weed out, just based on if it was worthwhile in terms of the work I needed to put in through the experience.
I appreciate that. I think that that's one of the biggest misnomers that people always, my nickname is Tank Money. Like, people always associate me with money. Tank got a bunch of money. Tank can make money. Tank can help me make money. And don't get me wrong, I do this money, but the reason I became a business owner, the reason I became an entrepreneur, the reason I do what I do is quality of life and freedom and choice. And I had a client last week, nice paying client. My team went to onboard this person, and it was a little bit of static in the onboarding process. And my first clients are my staff. Like, they got to love me and they got to love working here. So when I got a little feedback that it was rough, I called the lady up immediately and I was like, maybe I'm not for you, because, this, and this happened. And she was like, oh, no, it was a misunderstanding. This is fine. And I let her know, I was like, no money is going to make me not want to take your phone call. Like, I can't do it anymore. That's why I don't work with athletes the way I used to. It didn't matter what hour of the night, what day of the week, on vacation, they want you right now. And I was like, you know what? I can have a better quality of life and still do well for myself working with people I care to work for. So that's one of the things I love about entrepreneurial. Look at this. The hour is gone. So let me say this. Next week is the wrap up of the Home Buyers Workshop Month here at Wealth Our Way. And we are going to have a panel discussion with all three of our guests that have already been on. So it'll be Dayanna, it'll be Liz Parrish from Movement Mortgage, it'll be Mike Headley from the Headley Real Estate Group, and we're all going to come on and we're going to talk about a topic that Dayanna touched on a couple of times, which is, now you own your home. Now what? What is it for new home owners? What's it like that first 90 days? You got to furnish this joker. Your mortgage person told you not to buy anything while you were in the process, so you couldn't go charge anything at Raymore Flanagan. Now you got, empty rooms. So we're going to talk about all that next week. I want you to take the last 2.5 minutes, Dayanna, and tell people how they can find you, how they can get a hold of you, and just put all your information out here.
Yes. So thank you again, Tank, for having me on. Again, you guys can follow me on Instagram at Dayanna Reeves, so my first and last name. I'll also share my free home buyer guide with you, and I'll also share the registration information for my upcoming home buyer webinar, where I'll be going more into detail on how the process works from start to finish. So again, the home buyer webinar is for anyone. It doesn't matter where you are. I really just want to expose everyone to the information so that we all can, make the right decisions moving forward. But I'm excited to be back next week. The best way to connect with me is probably on Instagram at Dayanna Reeves.
Perfect. Loved having you. You're brilliant. You really care about the community. We love that here at Wealth Our Way. I thank you so much for being a guest on the Financial Power Hour. I'm very much looking forward to having you at the panel next week. And, I got to sign out the way I sign out every time for my people. They know how we get down here. Wealth is not only for the wealthy. I look forward to seeing you guys all next week. Thank you all very, very much for joining us. Have a great remainder of your Wednesday.
Thank you.